Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing I've learned about building a life you can be proud of, it's this. Your routine is the quiet engine behind every success story. Not the big moments, not the applause, not the breakthroughs you see on the surface, but the small, often unnoticed disciplines practiced when no one is looking. The difference between a life that drifts and a life that rises is hidden inside those daily decisions, repeated with consistency and purpose. Most people wait for inspiration before they act. They wait for the mood to strike, for motivation to show up like some guest of honor. But the truth is, if you rely on emotion to guide your days, you'll never build anything sturdy. Emotion is a wave, sometimes high, sometimes low. But discipline, routine, structure, these are the foundations that keep you steady, even when life tries to shake you. An unstoppable routine doesn't come from passion alone. It comes from commitment, from deciding who you want to become and aligning your actions with that vision every single day. You see, every morning you rise, you cast a vote for the kind of future you want to experience. And those votes accumulate. A routine built with intention doesn't just help you achieve your goals, it transforms your character. It shapes your confidence. It builds momentum so powerful that one day people will call you unstoppable, not because you never stumbled, but because you never stopped returning to the habits that mattered. So today, let's talk about how to build a routine that doesn't break under pressure, doesn't fade with time, and doesn't depend on how you feel when you wake up. A routine that becomes the driving force behind the life you've always imagined. Because once your routine becomes your strength, your success becomes inevitable. Your routine is the architect of your destiny because every small action you take, repeated regularly, becomes a brick laid in the foundation of your future. People often imagine that success is created through major breakthroughs, rare moments of inspiration, or sudden opportunities, but the truth is far simpler and far more empowering. Your life is shaped by what you do daily, not occasionally. It is built by the quiet choices made in the privacy of your own schedule and the discipline you apply long before any reward shows up. What you choose to repeat determines what you eventually become, and if your days are filled with intention, your future will reflect that intention in ways far greater than you might expect. This is why the small disciplines matter, because the mind is trained by repetition, not by random bursts of effort. When you choose small, consistent disciplines, you are signaling to yourself that your goals matter enough to show up for them, even when the world is not watching. These small disciplines are not about intensity, but about identity. They shape who you are becoming. People underestimate the power of modest beginnings because they are looking for dramatic change, yet real transformation almost always begins quietly. A person who chooses to read 10 minutes a day eventually becomes someone with knowledge and insight. A person who chooses to walk for 15 minutes each morning eventually becomes someone healthier and more energetic. These tiny investments seem insignificant at first, but compound over time until they become unstoppable force. If you want a different decade, you start by changing the next day, because days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and months into a life that either lifts you or limits you. The direction of your destiny is hidden inside your daily routine. Most people don't realize how much of their future they give away through inconsistency. They wait for motivation, assuming that strong feelings lead to strong habits, but real strength comes from discipline, not emotion. Emotion might get you excited, but discipline keeps you committed. Emotion fades, but discipline endures. That is why routine is so powerful. It doesn't ask how you feel, it simply asks whether you are willing to honor your commitments. If you follow a routine guided by principles instead of moods, you break free from the unpredictable nature of motivation and create something far more reliable. Your life becomes anchored. You are no longer moved by every distraction, every setback, every excuse, because your routine becomes the protector of your purpose. You start shaping your day instead of letting the day shape you. Every small discipline you choose is also a declaration of responsibility. It is a statement that you understand something essential. No one is coming to build your life for you. The world can inspire you. Teachers can guide you. Mentors can encourage you. But the daily work is yours. When you embrace that truth, routine becomes not a burden, but a privilege. You start to realize that the ability to control your day is a form of power. A person who controls their routine controls their direction, and a person who controls their direction controls their destiny. The world often rewards consistency more than talent because consistency keeps you in motion. It creates opportunities, momentum that talent alone cannot match. When you show up every day, even in small ways, life eventually shows up for you. The beauty of a daily routine is that it doesn't need to be perfect to be powerful. Many people sabotage themselves by believing that if they can't do something flawlessly, they shouldn't do it at all. But routines are not about perfection. They are about repetition and improvement. A routine that is imperfect but consistent will outperform a routine that is ideal but rarely followed. What matters most is that you begin and stay with it long enough for it to shape you. Small actions create habits, habits create character, and character creates results. This is why the first step is often the most important. Because once you establish a routine, the routine begins to carry you. It removes decision fatigue and turns effort into rhythm. You no longer debate whether you should act. You simply act because it has become who you are. With every repeated action, your routine also strengthens your self-trust. You prove to yourself day by day that you can rely on your own word. This internal trust is one of the greatest assets you can build, because a person who trusts themselves becomes capable of far more than a person who constantly breaks promises to their own potential. When you follow your routine, you reinforce your confidence in your ability to follow through. And confidence built on evidence is unshakable. It makes you resilient, determined, and harder to discourage. You begin to see that if small disciplines can produce small victories, then greater disciplines can produce greater victories. Bit by bit, your belief grows. As your routine solidifies, something else happens. Your standards rise. You cannot consistently invest in yourself and remain the same. Your environment begins to shift to match your habits. You start choosing better influences, making clearer decisions, valuing your time more, and allowing fewer distractions to interrupt your progress. Your identity evolves. You are no longer trying to build your destiny, you are living inside it. This is the silent transformation produced by routine. You don't notice it all at once, but one day you look back and see the distance you've traveled, not through giant leaps, but through steady steps repeated with purpose. Your routine becomes the architect of your destiny because it designs who you become long before the world recognizes the result. A strong routine builds discipline, discipline builds character, character builds confidence, and confidence builds outcomes that once felt out of reach. Consistency is the silent force that transforms average effort into extraordinary results because it turns actions into habits, habits into strengths, and strengths into achievements that seem almost effortless to the outside world, but were built quietly over time. Most people underestimate the power of consistency because they're focused on intensity. They want quick results, dramatic progress, and overnight change. But the real magic isn't found in explosive effort. It is found in the steady, repeated rhythms that accumulate into massive transformation. The person who practices a craft for 15 minutes every day will surpass the person who practices for 3 hours once in a while. The person who invests regularly, learns regularly, trains regularly, and shows up regularly becomes unbeatable. Not because they are the most talented, but because they are the most consistent. Consistency multiplies the value of every action, turning small steps into long journeys, minor improvements into major skills, and modest beginnings into impressive accomplishments. People often quit not because the goal is too big, but because they fail to understand how small actions, repeated without interruption, eventually move mountains. Consistency is not fast, but it is unstoppable. It doesn't care how far you have to go. It cares only that you keep going. Each day you show up, you build a little more momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in human achievement, because once it starts working in your favor, you no longer push your goals begin to pull you. Even a small routine that feels insignificant at the start becomes meaningful when repeated through days, weeks, months, and years. What feels easy today leads to something remarkable tomorrow if you commit to the discipline of consistency. One of the reasons consistency is so transformative is because it builds a bridge between where you are and where you want to be. When you take small actions every single day, you shorten the emotional emotional distance between your present self and your future self. You stop seeing your goals as distant dreams and start seeing them as eventual destinations. Each act of discipline becomes a promise you keep to yourself. And every promise kept reinforces your belief that you can trust yourself to follow through. This internal trust is a form of personal power that cannot be given by anyone else. It is earned through consistency. People who lack consistency often lack confidence because they don't yet believe their actions can create results. But once they begin a routine and honor it day after day, their confidence grows because they finally have evidence that they can rely on themselves. Consistency also separates the dreamers from the doers. Anyone can dream, anyone can imagine, anyone can plan. But only the consistent turn imagination into reality. The world is full of talented people who never reached their potential because they relied on inspiration instead of routine. Inspiration might start the journey, but consistency finishes it. Consistency is not glamorous, and that is exactly why it is powerful. It works quietly, without applause, without recognition, without the excitement of new beginnings. But while excitement fades, consistency endures. It becomes the steady heartbeat of progress, and what grows in silence becomes strong enough to withstand noise. A crucial truth about consistency is that it doesn't depend on speed, it depends on repetition. You don't need to move fast, you need to keep moving. Life is filled with seasons that challenge your energy, motivation, and optimism. During those seasons, consistency protects you from losing ground. It ensures that even on your worst days, you still show up in some form. This prevents the painful cycle of starting, stopping, restarting, and losing momentum. When you stay consistent, even at a reduced pace, you remain connected to your goals. You maintain the identity of someone who is committed. And identity is what shapes your long-term behavior. A person who sees themselves as consistent becomes consistent. A person who believes they are unreliable behaves unreliably. Consistency rewires that identity through daily action, reinforcing your capacity to endure challenges without drifting from your path. Over time, consistency turns into mastery. Every great performer, leader, or creator you admire became great not through rare moments of brilliance, but through repeated effort sustained over years. They practiced when they didn't feel like it, trained when no one was clapping, studied when others relaxed, and worked on their craft long before their results became visible. To the world, their achievements seemed extraordinary, but to them, it was simply the natural outcome of ordinary actions repeated with extraordinary dedication. Consistency creates mastery because it exposes you to your craft every day, deepening your understanding and sharpening your intuition. You begin to see patterns others miss, solve problems more quickly, and act with clarity that comes only from repeated exposure and practice. Another reason consistency is so powerful is because it enhances focus. When you keep returning to the same actions day after day, your mind becomes oriented toward your goals. You start noticing opportunities you previously ignored. You make decisions that align with your priorities instead of being distracted by noise. Consistency brings order to your life. It eliminates the chaos of random effort and replaces it with the structure of predictable progress. The structured progress gives you the patience needed to stay committed long enough to see results. Impatience destroys dreams because it demands the reward before the work. But consistency teaches you to love the work. It teaches you to trust the process rather than chase shortcuts. Eventually, the process becomes something you rely on. It becomes a source of strength. One of the most overlooked benefits of consistency is emotional stability. When you follow a routine, you create certainty in your life. You anchor your mind in actions you can control, even if the world around you is unpredictable. This reduces stress, anxiety, and self-doubt because you always know what to do next. A consistent person has a structure to return to, a path to walk, a direction to follow. They don't lose themselves in chaos because their routine holds them steady. That stability becomes a quiet superpower. It helps you stay grounded, think clearly, and move forward regardless of circumstances. Consistency also attracts respect. People trust those who are dependable. They admire those who endure. They look up to those who stay committed even when the excitement fades. When you are consistent, you become someone others can rely on, and more importantly, someone you can rely on. This reliability becomes part of your character and part of your reputation. Success is built on many things, but one of the strongest foundations is the trust others place in your ability to show up and follow through. Consistency builds that trust. Eventually, consistency becomes momentum, and momentum becomes transformation. You reach a point where the habits you once struggled to practice become effortless. What once required discipline becomes automatic. The actions you once forced yourself to do become part of your identity. And once something becomes part of your identity, it becomes nearly impossible to stop. This is how ordinary people achieve extraordinary results. Not through rare bursts of effort, but through the quiet, unshakable force of consistency. An unstoppable routine begins with intentional choices, because nothing powerful in life is built on accident. If you want a routine that carries you through the highs and lows, that continues working even when your emotions don't cooperate, you must design it deliberately. Most people drift through their days reacting to whatever comes their way, hoping motivation will steer them, but motivation is unpredictable. It shows up one day and disappears the next. Intentional choices, on the other hand, are steady. They don't rely on mood or environment. They are the decisions you make about who you want to become and how you plan to get there. When you begin your routine with intention, you create something stronger than inspiration. You create direction. And direction gives structure to your effort, clarity to your goals, and meaning to your habits. Intentional choices require you to pause and think. You must ask yourself what you want from your life and why it matters. Without that clarity, routines feel forced, heavy, or pointless. But the moment you connect a routine to a purpose, everything changes. You no longer see the routine as a task, but as an investment. You start to understand that every deliberate action is a seed planted in the soil of your future. And just like a farmer doesn't plant seeds randomly, a person who wants to build an unstoppable routine doesn't act randomly. They choose their habits with intention, aligning each one with a long-term vision. This alignment is the root of discipline, because when your actions match your aspirations, discipline feels meaningful instead of burdensome. When you build your routine with intention, you stop waiting for the right time or the perfect conditions. You realize that your routine is not supposed to fit into your life. Your life is supposed to grow around your routine. You create non-negotiables, habits that you practice regardless of how you feel or what the day throws at you. These non-negotiables act like anchors. They stabilize your life and protect your progress. Whether your intention is to become healthier, wiser, wealthier, or more capable, your routine becomes the daily expression of that intention. Every morning you recommit to the path you've chosen, not by making dramatic declarations, but by doing the small, consistent work that moves you forward. The power of intentional routines lies in their ability to shape your identity. When you act with intention day after day, you begin to see yourself differently. If you choose to read every day, you begin seeing yourself as someone who values growth. If you choose to train your mind or body daily, you see yourself as someone disciplined. If you choose gratitude every morning, you see yourself as someone grounded and steady. Identity constructed through intention is stronger than identity constructed through accident, because you consciously build the person you want to be. You're not shaped by convenience, you're shaped by decision. This gives you inner strength, confidence, and stability, because you no longer rely on external forces to define who you are. Intentional routines are also effective because they eliminate the noise that distracts most people. When you make intentional choices, you reduce decision fatigue. You don't wake up asking yourself whether you should act. You already decided yesterday. You simply follow through today. Your mind becomes clearer, your focus sharper, and your energy better directed, because you're no longer wasting time figuring out what matters. The path is chosen. The routine is designed. The work is obvious. And when the work is obvious, procrastination loses its power. You start to move through your days with a sense of rhythm rather than resistance. Intentional choices also create sustainability, which is why they lead to unstoppable routines. When people set routines based on emotion, they often choose tasks that are too heavy or too ambitious. They burn themselves out quickly because the routine wasn't crafted with thought, it was crafted with excitement. But excitement fades, and when it does, the routine collapses. Intentional routines, however, are built with balance. They include habits that challenge you but do not overwhelm you. They include effort but not exhaustion. They are built with a long horizon in mind, with the understanding that a routine should be something you can continue for years, not something you abandon after a burst of enthusiasm. This sustainability is what makes the routine unstoppable. It's not that you never face difficulty, it's that the routine is designed to survive difficulty. Another reason intentional choices create unstoppable routines is that they help you anticipate obstacles before they appear. When you build a routine consciously, you think through the challenges you might encounter. You plan for interruptions, low energy days, unexpected responsibilities, and moments of doubt. You create backup plans for your goals. You build flexibility into your habits. This is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of wisdom. People fail when they expect their journey to be easy, but those who anticipate struggle endure it. An intentional routine acknowledges the reality of life, that not every day is smooth, not every moment is motivating, and not every challenge is predictable. By preparing for resistance, you make your routine resilient. Intentional routines also impact the quality of your decisions throughout the day. When you begin the morning with intention, the rest of the day tends to follow the same tone. You become more aware of your choices because you already made a conscious choice to start strong. This awareness influences how you eat, how you think, how you spend your time, and how you respond to challenges. You start noticing which habits support your routine and which habits sabotage it. You become more selective with your environment, your associations, and the information you consume. A routine built on intention creates a life built on intention. You stop living by accident and start living by design. One of the most powerful effects of intentional choices is that they create alignment between your aspirations and your actions. Many people dream of a better life but act in ways that contradict that dream. They want health but practice poor habits. They want financial stability but spend without discipline. They want confidence but avoid challenges. This misalignment weakens their routine because the routine doesn't reflect their true desires. But when you make choices intentionally, your actions begin matching your goals. This alignment fuels motivation, clarity, confidence, and momentum. You begin to feel congruent. Your life starts making sense. You no longer feel pulled in opposite directions because your actions and dreams point the same way. With intentionality comes a sense of ownership. You stop blaming circumstances, people, or luck for where you are. You take responsibility for the structure of your life. This ownership is empowering because it reminds you that your routine is not happening to you, it is created by you. And what is created can be strengthened. What is chosen can be expanded. You gain the ability to adjust, refine, and optimize your routine because it belongs to you. And the more ownership you take, the more unstoppable you become. Intentional routines also create emotional resilience. When your routine is anchored in choices that matter to you, it comes harder for adversity to break your focus. You don't collapse when life gets difficult because your routine is not based on how you feel, it is based on who you want to become. You keep going even when the world feels heavy because your intention is stronger than your mood. This resilience compounds over time. Every day you continue despite challenges adds another layer of strength to your character. Eventually you become someone who doesn't stop because you no longer know how to. The routine becomes part of your identity, and the identity becomes part of your destiny. Intentional choices also sharpen your ability to say no. When you know what matters, you become comfortable declining what doesn't. Distractions lose their appeal. Time-wasting habits lose their grip. Negative influences lose their importance. You stop chasing everything and start focusing on the few things that move your life forward. This ability to say no is one of the most important skills for building an unstoppable routine because routine requires focus. Without focus, even a strong routine can be derailed. But with intention, your attention becomes disciplined, and disciplined attention creates meaningful progress. Another essential aspect of intentional routines is the psychological shift they create. When your routine is driven by intention, you stop relying on emotion for momentum. You start relying on commitment. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start asking, "Is it aligned with who I want to be?" This single shift transforms everything. It frees you from the ups and downs of emotion. It gives you consistency. It gives you direction. It gives you structure. You begin to see that discipline is actually a form of freedom because it removes the chaos of indecision and replaces it with stability. Intentional choices also make your progress measurable. When you know why you're doing something, you can track how you're growing. You become more analytical, more aware, more engaged with your development. You start adjusting your habits, improving your approach, eliminating inefficiencies. An intentional routine evolves with you. It grows stronger as you grow stronger. It becomes a living system that adapts to your goals, your challenges, and your next level. Finally, an unstoppable routine starts with intentional choices, because intention gives meaning to the repetition. Anyone can repeat an action, but only someone who knows why they are repeating it can turn that action into transformation. Without intention, a routine becomes empty. With intention, a routine becomes powerful. It becomes the engine behind your success, the structure behind your discipline, the map behind your direction, and the quiet force that carries you toward the life you are building through deliberate, thoughtful, meaningful choices every single day.